Nottingham Forest have received a £30 million bid for Jono. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to part 2 of your Forest transfer news. In this video, we will be talking about a bid being placed for Johnson. We'll be talking about another striker that's been heavily linked with Nottingham Forest. So, before we do all that, as always, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new, and let's jump straight into this. Okay, so we've shown you over the last week or two, there's been a lot of noise coming in and around for Brennan Johnson, and it has finally emerged that a club has shown their hand, and that club is Brentford. Brentford have put in a £30 million bid, according to John Percy from The Telegraph. I can't even say it straight. I mean, how disrespectful is this money? 30 million for Jono. I won't buy his left goddamn toe. And I do mean that, seriously. Like, let's compare this. Firstly, Jono signed a 4-year contract last season for Nottingham Forest, putting him on about 30k wages, but more importantly, putting him on a decent length. So there's no way that 30 million would even come close to entertaining this. On top of that, look at players like Gordon, who went from Everton to Newcastle, and that was meant to be over 40 million for him, and he's barely touched a ball for Newcastle. In fact, I didn't really rate him at Everton that highly, and he's a mardy little git. Whereas Jono has come through the ranks at Nottingham Forest, and he's developed year on year. For the last 2 to 3 seasons, he's got better and better and better, and there's no sign showing that he's going to slow down. If anything, he's going to get better and better going forward. He's only 21, turning 22 this year. He's not even anywhere near the prime of his career. And don't forget, the second fastest player in the Premier League on top of that. His goal return, look, you have to say, with our style of football, with low block football, for a player to nearly get into double figures on Premier League goals is a hell of a return. It shows you he needs to be prolific in front of goal and convert the few chances that he's had throughout the season. Yes, I know he can drift in and out of games sometimes. He can be a bit of a moments player, but those moments are worth their weight in gold currently, and they are not worth 30 mil. This to me is just a feeler from Brentford. They know full well this is going to be rejected, and rejected with laughter. But they do need to replace Toney, as he's going to be on his suspension until at least January next year. So Jono is going to be clearly one of the players thereafter. Now, I expect more bids to come for Jono over the summer. I expect to see the likes of maybe Villa coming in, as we mentioned to you yesterday, and maybe even higher up the league. I wouldn't be surprised if it's someone Spurs looked at. But it's going to cost them an absolute arm and a leg. And let me remind you that Nottingham Forest have said he is not for sale. Full stop. End of. This team is needed and going to be built around the likes of Jono, Morgan Gibbs-White, Danilo, etc. The young core that we've got there. And Jono's going to form part of that plan. And he is extremely loyal, not just to the club, but also to Steve Cooper. You've got to remember, when we had Houghton was ready to throw him to the side. And it was Steve Cooper that rekindled him, brought him in, and positioned him perfectly, and got all those goals we got out of him last season. So, for me, do I expect this? Is this true? Yes, it probably is. However, 30 million, this will just be Brentford's first feeler. I would, look, if you want to come in 60 plus, then let's start talking. But at the moment, you're nowhere near. But what do you guys think about this story? Let me add one more thing to this as well. With all due respect to Brentford, I don't really see them as a club that is above Forest. Yes, I know they finished higher in the league, but in terms of a football club, with what's their stadium called, the BTEC Stadium, it's not a Premier League club that has history, that has, what we have at the City Ground, the stars that we've got and everything like that. I don't see this as a step up. And I know they've been doing good things over the last few years, but it's just not a club that even has a huge fan base. And for Jono, I would see this as a backward step. I wouldn't even see it as a sideward step. especially the way I'm hoping Forest are going to go over the next few years. I expect us to overtake Brentford sooner rather than later. I really do, in terms of league positions and things like that. So for Jono, he's a smart kid. He will be looking at the long-term plan. And Brentford are a good club, but they're not a Nottingham Forest. Get your thoughts in down below on that. Okay, let's move forward and look at a striker that's being linked to Nottingham Forest from Manchester City, Carlos Borges, who's been with them for a few years and is an absolute goal machine. He scored 21 goals in 24 games for them last season. You may be thinking, what? Yeah, it wasn't their first team, it was their youth team. But he's an absolute goal machine. And he is lightning fast. Like literally, it's like playing with Skate Electrics watching him go. So this one does excite me. Is he ready for the Premier League? Not really. But I do prefer a younger profile player than I do a golden oldie, so to speak, even though, you know, Felipe is my favorite player. But with this guy, he could work. However, he's 19 years old and he would cost Forest somewhere between 10 and 12 million pounds. Technically, I guess that means 11. But he's risky. He's risky. But it's the kind of player profile that I like Steve Cooper to work with, because I really do believe he's very good with young talent and nurturing them through and building them up. And also because he's coming from that Man City academy, you know Pep's been keeping eyes on it. You know Pep's been monitoring these kind of players. But that then does pose the question of which way has he gone? Has Pep looked at this guy and thought he's not good enough to cut it for Man City? Or has he looked at it and thought, I can't fit him in now because we got Haaland, Alvarez, etc. and we don't know where to play him. So maybe for this guy's career, it's better to go forward. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm sure not a lot of people have seen him play. Obviously, we've not seen too much of him, but his reputation is spoken of very highly. So get your thoughts in on him as well. Could potentially Jono be going out and Borges coming in? I don't know. And excuse my Portuguese pronunciation. All right, guys, that brings you up with part 2 of your transfer news today. Don't forget, if you haven't already, go check out part 1, where we talk about all the other links to Nottingham Forest. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Forest Fan TV, and maybe we'll see you in a part 3 later on. Who knows? As the transfer window is now open, things are starting to heat up. Come on, you Reds.